This is why Neanderthals would be perfect UFC fighters. After looking at the physiology of Neanderthals, I'm convinced these guys would have been absolute monsters in the octagon. We are talking about humans who are literally built different, not in the internet slang way. I mean their bones, muscles and entire entity was engineered by evolution to be fighting machines. In this video I will break down exactly why an average Neanderthal would beat every current UFC champion. First thing you need to understand, Neanderthal bone density was 20 to 30% higher than modern humans. And let me put that in perspective for you. You know how fighters spend years conditioning their shins, kicking everything around to build up bone density, and then still end up with broken legs? Neanderthals were born with shins that were already denser than all of us have. But their bones weren't just denser, their inner structure was different. When we look at Neanderthal remains, the ridges where muscles attached to bones are massive compared to ours. These are called muscle attachment sites, and the bigger they are, the more force that muscle can generate. Now, here's where it gets even crazy. Their ribcage was wider and barrel shaped, which means two things that would make them unstoppable in the cage. One, their vital organs had better protection. We are talking about natural body armor that would make body shots way less effective. We have seen fighters get dropped by liver shots. Neanderthals are basically immune to liver shots. Two, that barrel chest meant massive lung capacity. These guys were adapted to survive ice ages with limited resources. Their cardiovascular system was built for endurance that we can barely comprehend. Modern fighters gas out after 15 minutes of high intensity fighting. To be fair, modern US citizen gas out after 15 stairs, but Neanderthals were literally designed to outlast harsh conditions for months. Now, let's talk about their grappling advantage. That's where Neanderthals would absolutely dominate. Their center of gravity was lower because of their shorter, stockier build. In wrestling and jiu-jitsu, having a lower center of gravity is huge. It makes you harder to take down and gives you better balance in scrambles. Look at guys like Daniel Cormier or Merab Dvalishvili, both shorter, stockier, with incredible wrestling bases. Now imagine that build, but with bones that are 30% denser and muscle attachment points that are twice as pronounced. Also, their hands were 20% larger than ours, with significantly stronger grip strength. 20% might not sound like much, but the average Neanderthal had bigger hands than Brock Lesnar. Grip strength is everything in grappling. You cannot submit someone you cannot hold onto. Modern fighters train their grip strength for years. Neanderthals had that advantage from birth. And it's not everything in terms of wrestling. Their hip structure was wider, which in wrestling terms means a better base. Combined with their lower center of gravity, stronger grip and denser bones, they would be nearly impossible to take down and control on the ground. Okay, you may guess previous points, but there is something most people don't even think about. Their necks. Neanderthal necks were thicker and more muscular than ours. Choking someone out requires compressing blood vessels or the airways. With a thicker, more muscular neck, both rear naked chokes and guillotines would be significantly harder to finish. Almost impossible to finish. You know, guys like Derrick Lewis seem impossible to submit partly because of their thick necks. Neanderthals had that natural advantage without spending years in the gym building it up. And the same advantage goes with KO resistance. Yoel Romero trained for decades to build it. Neanderthals were born that way. So this thick neck gives them submission and KO resilience, which is pretty sick. Talking about KOs, as a medical student, this next part is fascinating from an anatomical perspective. Neanderthal skulls were thicker than ours. Not just the frontal bone, but the entire cranial structure was more robust. This isn't speculation, we have the fossil evidence to prove it. In the clinch, where fighters are constantly pumping hands, throwing elbows and taking impact to the skull, having a thicker cranial structure is massive advantage. We see fighters get concussed from much lighter impacts than what Neanderthal skull could handle. Their brain was also slightly larger on average, housed in this more protective skull. I don't have data for the next statement, but I'm curious about your opinion. Would the average person in 2025 break their elbow when striking a Neanderthal skull at 12 to 6 elbows? What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Now let's level up. The real advantage isn't just physical structure, it's pain tolerance and recovery. These weren't humans living comfortable lives. Neanderthals survived ice ages with stone tools and primitive medicine. They dealt with injuries that would sideline modern fighters for months. And they did it without painkillers, without proper medical care, and without any of the recovery tools we have today. From a medical perspective, their pain tolerance had to be through the roof just to survive their daily environment. And right now I get notification that the latest paper about Neanderthals was just dropped. It says you should follow me on IG and X. Okay, that was my try for advertisement. Frankly, my videos are getting dozens of thousands of views. But this channel has only 7k subs and my IG has 100 followers, and not even talking about X. So if you want more content, follow me there. I post daily 2-3 posts. Now let's talk about something that decides most fights: endurance. That barrel chest I mentioned earlier, it housed lungs that were adapted for thin air and extreme cold. Their entire respiratory system was optimized for efficiency in harsh conditions. Modern fighters at altitude struggle because the air is thinner. Neanderthals were adapted to environment conditions that were consistently harsh. Their cardiovascular system was their survival mechanism. You have seen fights where the better technical fighter loses because they gas out. A Neanderthal would have the cardio advantage over any modern fighter, and even over Merab. Here is something interesting from recent research on cold exposure. And this ties into why guys like Wim Hof and fighters who do ice baths recover better. Neanderthals were naturally adapted to cold. Their blood flow regulation was more efficient. And better blood flow means better oxygen delivery to muscles, faster recovery between rounds, and less lactate building up during intense activity. So, given the break between each round, they would basically reset to their original condition. Let me put all this in perspective with current fighters. Jon Jones is considered one of the greatest because of his reach, frame, and ability to use his physical advantages. But his advantages are mostly length, technique, and dirty game. A Neanderthal would have advantages in literally every physical category that matters in fighting. It would be like facing someone who had been genetically engineered specifically for combat sports. As someone studying medicine, what's wild to me is that these weren't genetic anomalies or outliers. This was the standard Neanderthal build.